Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rob, and today we're going to be talking about why the haters of SCHD are so wrong, why they are just so wrong. And so I'm going to break that down. I love to talk about this because people look at SCHD and they look at it from the wrong viewpoint, the wrong lens, and they get it all wrong. They say this is a terrible ETF. It's done terrible the last couple of years, and the way you think about it, that you're hearing people talk about this online, is that this is the worst ETF ever created. And it's simply not the case. It's one of the best ones ever created, and people love it, people have it, people use it. So we're going to dive into that today. I'm going to break down the three biggest complaints that people have about SCHD, tell you why they're completely wrong. But before we do that, I do need to remind you that I am not a financial advisor. Please do not take this as financial advice. Please do your own research and make your own decisions. All right, so SCHD, for a long time, the last several years, 2020 to 2022, 2023, this was everyone's favorite ETF because it was growing, the dividends were growing, and then recently it's kind of flattened out, and a lot of the magic has kind of faded off of it. People are now saying this is not something you should be buying, not something you should have in your portfolio. I want to get out of this, and it's just the worst investment you can make. So we do get a lot of haters on the channel and other things that don't like this ETF. They don't understand this ETF. So if you're one of those people and you're watching this, I do want to hear your comments. I want to read what you have to say, but I do want to say you do have to watch the whole video and hear what I have to say, and then put your comment in and tell me why I'm wrong after you've watched the video. If you don't watch the whole video, we're going to know because you're going to say one of these things that I've already addressed. So let's dive into this. And the first thing that people, you hear them, this is the most recent one that people are really hung up on, is that SCHD is a bad investment for retirees because the total return has just been terrible the last few years. And that's not really even true to begin with. It's not been terrible. It's not like it's lost 20%. It's gained 5 or 6%. So that is not something that I would deem terrible. I would say terrible would be losing 30%. It has not done that. It's never lost more than 5% in a single year. But what they'll say is that SCHD, when you compare it to VOO, VOO has really crushed it the last 2 years. And that is pretty much true. VOO has done better than SCHD. But if we're going to say that that makes SCHD a bad investment, then we have to compare VOO to the things that crushed it, because there are things that crush VOO. And then we have to compare that thing to the thing that crushed it and say that those are bad investments. And so really, if you're going to go down that route and say that something that gained money but didn't gain as much money as something else is a bad investment, then there's only one good investment, and that's the thing that gained the most. And the thing that gained the most was Regencell Bioscience, 11,830% appreciation this year. So unless your portfolio is comprised completely of Regencell Bioscience, you could have done better this year. And you cannot say that whatever you're invested in is the best investment if that's the logic you're going to take. And a lot of people do that. They'll say, well, SCHD only made 6% and VOO made 12%. So VOO is a great investment and SCHD is a bad investment. That's just moving the goalposts to where you want them, because I could just as easily say that something beat VOO. So as long as the investment is meeting your criteria, which SCHD has done, it has not lost us tons of money. It may not have made as much money as some other investments, but it did put a place in our portfolio. It did diversify our portfolio. It did do its job. That's a good investment. You can't judge things based on if they were the absolute best, because even if you take out Regencell and you just say what was the best S&P 500 investment, Western Digital, up 276%. Pretty much nobody has a huge chunk of their portfolio in Western Digital. So we can all say that our portfolio, any ETF we picked, any stock we picked, could have done better. But that doesn't mean they were all bad investments just because they didn't do as good as Western Digital. Okay, so that's number one. You can't judge SCHD's returns versus VOO and say it was bad. It's okay, and it can be true that they were both good investments, okay? It's okay and it's true that lots of things are good investments because they meet different criteria, different purposes in your portfolio, and not everything every year is going to be number one. Okay, that's the first one. Second complaint we get all the time about SCHD is that they always take the good companies out of it. And this has been true somewhat recently. They'll do things like take Broadcom out because they have a very strict criteria that will kick companies out once they rebalance it every year. So they rebalance the ETF, and some of the companies that are in it that have done really well, the price has gone up pretty high, so their dividend drops. So then they take that out because they need companies that have a higher dividend because it's a dividend ETF. So this last time, a couple years ago, they took out Broadcom, and people got really upset about that because Broadcom was a great company. And then in the time since then, Broadcom has shot up like crazy, and everyone's mad because it's like, oh man, you took this great company out, now I've lost all this money I could have made, and that's why SHD is lagging everything, and people get really upset about it. And I look at this and I say to myself, are you a little bit crazy here? Because you know it's possible that whenever they take a company out of SCHD, you can just buy that company individually, put it right back in. You can figure out how much it would be of the ETF, buy a few shares, put it right back in the ETF. In fact, you could just make a basket, a DIY basket, of all the companies that SCHD has kicked out every year. And if you like them, buy them. If you don't like them, don't buy them. And then you've got SCHD Plus. SCHD Plus, all the good companies that SCHD kicked out. And if you'd have done that, probably your return, your 5 to 6% return, would have kept pace with many other things. And so I think people get locked down into this mindset where it's like, well, I own SCHD. They took the company out. What can I do? Like, there's nothing I can do about it. Of course there's something you can do. You can buy the company that they took out. This is not a valid complaint about SCHD. They tell you what they're taking out. If you like that company, just buy a little bit. This is not a big deal. You can see right on the SCHD website what percentage of the fund it was. Just buy that percentage, and boom, it's right back in. No problem. Okay, then the third and biggest complaint is that the dividend yield is too low compared to other things. And when you look at it today, you buy a share of SCHD today, you're getting 3.87%. You buy a JEPQ, you're probably getting 9.5%, maybe 10% if it's good. It's a good month. Of course, they're selling covered calls, and nobody really knows exactly what they're going to get every month, but it has been pretty consistent for the last year. I will say that. But it's not really a situation where it's going to go up over time. And it's not a situation where you're going to look back 10 years from now and say, whoa, this really went up. The difference is that when people compare JEPQ to SCHD, they're looking at the now. And most people buying SCHD are not buying it for the now, they're buying it for the future. So what will happen 15 years from now? If you're 50 and you're buying SCHD, what will it look like when you're 65? Well, luckily we can go back and look 15 years ago and see what happened today versus 15 years ago. Pulling up the SCHD yield on cost, for every dollar you put into SCHD 15 years ago, your yield on cost today is 12.74%. So it's beating JEPQ. And not only that, but you're going to have that continuing to go up for the next 5, 10, 15 years, however long you're going to hold it. If you have a long time horizon and you don't need the money right away, over the last 15 years, if JEPQ had existed, SCHD would crush it based on the yield it would get you when you're 65 if you bought it when you were 50. So I think this is not an apples to apples comparison, because people are comparing a 9.5 yield percent yield for JEPQ that is basically stuck there. It's not going to go up. And they're comparing a 3.87 yield for SCHD that's going up every single year. And if you have 30 years to get this yield, by the time you actually need your money, your SCHD yield is going to be way higher than JEPQ, your yield on cost. So that's something to think about as well. And I just think that people really look at these two things, and they look at it just for the right now. Like, what's the yield today, and what has the performance been for the last 6 months? That's the totally wrong way to look about this. This is a long-term investment. This is a 10-year, 15, 20-year investment. The real way to look at this is, what has this done over the last 20 years? And can I expect that to continue going forward? And what little pitfalls have there been, like taking out Broadcom, that I could take care of myself? I could just buy Broadcom. And so when you look at it that way, I think people get SCHD wrong because they just look at the today. And yes, if you just look at the today, it hasn't been a great year. But that is not the whole story of SCHD. It is an ETF that does well over the long term, that does its job, that diversifies portfolios. And I'm also not saying JEPQ is bad. I would put JEPQ in my portfolio as well. But you do need to understand the differences, and don't listen to people that just say, oh, one is terrible and one is great, because they're both great depending on the circumstance that you're in. And it's your job to figure out which one applies to your life, your situation, and your portfolio. So guys, I know you have thoughts on what I've just said. Either you love SCHD, let me know about that. Maybe you don't like it at all, and you're just here to tell me that. I want to read about why in the comments. If it's one of the things I didn't mention, give me another couple of reasons that I can look at and see why you don't like it. I do hope you liked the video, though, even if you don't like SCHD. If you did like the video, please give me a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I will see you on the next video.